Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into the secret life of business data. From the instant it's created to the moment it gets deleted, that information is on a pretty wild adventure, a complex and often dangerous one. So let's follow the trail. Just think about the last time you bought something online. You found what you wanted, you clicked buy, and that was it, right? For you, the whole thing was over in a second. But for the company on the other end, well, for them, your single click was just the beginning. So what is that journey? Where does all the information from your purchase actually go? How do they use it? And probably most important, how in the world is it protected? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today. You see, that one click doesn't just land in a single spot. Nope, it instantly lights up what you can think of as the company's entire digital nervous system, a whole web of interconnected systems that immediately get to work processing your transaction. And at the very heart of this nervous system, you'll find the Accounting Information System, or AIS for short. This is the central hub, the main processor. It's built specifically to handle routine, superstructured financial data, which is exactly what the data from your online purchase is. Now, this AIS isn't just one big blob. It's actually made up of three key subsystems working together. First, you've got the Transaction Processing System, the TPS. It's on the front lines, basically catching all the raw data as it comes in. Next, that data flows to the Management Reporting System, or MRS. This is where the data gets crunched for internal folks to make decisions. And finally, there's the General Ledger System, which gets the official financial statements ready for outsiders like investors and banks. Back in the day, these systems were often what we call stovepipe systems. They were totally separate, isolated, and they couldn't talk to each other at all. It was a mess, creating huge problems. So that led to the modern solution, Enterprise Resource Planning Systems, or ERPs. These things are game changers. They integrate everything, accounting, manufacturing, HR, you name it, into one seamless system for the whole company. Okay, so the data is flowing through all these slick integrated systems. But when you have millions of transactions happening, you create a literal ocean of information. So with this giant digital ocean, how do companies even begin to organize it all? Well, that brings us to databases and data warehouses. The most fundamental tool for getting organized is the database. The best way to think of it is like a super sophisticated digital library. Its main job is to organize all the data, get rid of any duplicates, and make sure everything is connected and easy to find when you need it. So here's a really simple look at what a relational database might look like. Each of these columns, like name or amount, is called a field. And each row is a single record, like one of your purchases. The whole grid together, that's a table. But the real magic happens when you link tables together using a common key, like that customer ID, which lets you ask really complex questions across all your data. But a regular database is mostly for day-to-day stuff, current operations. For the really deep, long-term analysis, companies turn to a data warehouse. This thing is a massive repository. It pulls in both current and historical data from every single corner of the company. It's built for one reason, for analysis, for reporting, and for digging up those hidden trends in all that big data. Now, here's a crucial point. Every single piece of data, it doesn't matter if it's in a database or a huge data warehouse, follows a pretty predictable and structured path. It goes from creation all the way to its eventual deletion. We call this the data lifecycle. And this journey has 7 really clear phases. Let's walk through them. It all starts with data capture. That's the moment the data is born. Then you've got data maintenance, where it gets cleaned up and processed. Next up is synthesis and analytics. This is where the real insights are created. Phase 4 is data usage, actually applying it to business tasks. Then comes data publication, which is when you send it outside the company, like on a customer's bill. Once it's not being used anymore, it goes into data archival for long-term storage. And finally, the end of the line, data purging, where every single copy is securely destroyed. Okay, but let's be real. This journey is anything but safe. At every single stage of its life, data is surrounded by all kinds of dangers and perils that can totally compromise it. First off, unlike old-school paper ledgers, a digital audit trail can be, well, volatile. It might only exist for a split second or only in a format that a machine can read. This makes it incredibly hard for a human auditor to follow the breadcrumbs and see what really happened. Next up is something you might not think about. Automation means less human involvement. The employee who enters a transaction might never actually see the final report. And since we all kind of have this tendency to trust computer output as being perfect, there's less reason for people to double-check for errors. And then, of course, there's the constant threat of unauthorized access. In the old days, a thief needed to physically get their hands on the records. Today, bad actors, both inside and outside the company, can try to get its sensitive data from literally anywhere in the world. Now, this one is a fascinating paradox. The beauty of computers is that they process every single transaction exactly the same way, which gets rid of simple clerical mistakes. But that's also their biggest risk. A single programming error means that every single similar transaction will be processed incorrectly. One tiny bug can have absolutely catastrophic consequences. So, with all these dangers lurking around every corner, how does a company protect its information gold? The answer lies with the guardians of the data, a really solid framework of internal governance and controls. The globally accepted gold standard for this is called the COSO Framework, and it's often shown as this three-dimensional cube. You can think of it like you're building a fortress to protect your data. Each face of this cube represents a critical part of that fortress. On the top, you've got the objectives, things like operations, reporting, and compliance. The front face shows the 5 key components that make up the walls of your fortress, and the side represents the entire company structure, from the whole organization down to a single department. It all works together to create a complete framework for control. And those 5 components on the front are the absolute foundation. It all starts with a control environment. That's the ethical tone at the top. Then comes risk assessment, where you identify all the threats. Control activities are the actual policies and procedures you put in place to handle those risks. Information and communication make sure the right data gets to the right people at the right time. And finally, monitoring continuously checks to see how well everything is actually working. But, and this is a huge but, no system is foolproof. Even the best controls can only give you reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. Why? Because you just can't eliminate the risk of faulty human judgment or simple mistakes or even management deciding to override the system on purpose. And you can't stop employees from working together to get around the rules. And that really brings us full circle. From a single click all the way to a complex system of controls, we've seen the incredible journey of data. So the question I want to leave you with is this. In your world, is data really being treated like the priceless asset it is? And more importantly, who are its guardians?